Hello and welcome to the conversation on News Central TV. On the conversation, we discuss trending political stories around the African continent. I am Rita Omodia. Now, on today's edition of the conversation, we begin with parliamentary elections in Lesotho, where the newly formed opposition Revolution for Prosperity, that is the RFP party, has won the race. We'll also discuss how this party, which is barely 7 months old, has managed to achieve this feat. Now, on the second half, we will also be giving you details on the latest in charts politics. The country's National Forum has extended transition to democracy by 2 years. Within this 2-year period, General Muhammad Dabi will be in charge of the country as transitional president. Now, let's kick off with Lesotho, where the opposition, the Revolution for Prosperity, RFP party, has emerged victorious in the country's recently concluded parliamentary elections. Formed just 6 months before national elections, the Revolution for Prosperity RFP won 56 parliamentary seats in last week's election ahead of Democratic Congress, DC, with 29, and the ruling All Basotho Convention, ABC, which polled 8. But according to the Independent Electoral Commission, the party still fell short of a clear majority. Lesotho's National Assembly comprises a total of 120 seats, of which 80 were won by first-past-the-post voting, with the remaining 40 elected using the proportional representation system. As it stands, the RFP will now have to woo other parties in order to gain a majority in the 120-member parliament. Launched in March this year, just 6 months before the 2022 general elections, the RFP is led by businessman Ntsokoane Samuel Matekane. The party has promised to focus on food security, agriculture, healthcare expansion, pharmaceutical production, and good governance. Now, join us live for this conversation. We have Sehoa Santho, Governance and Development Consultant in Lesotho, SA and SADC region. We also have Sekoniyela Mapeja, Programs Director at Lesotho Council of NGOs, LCN. Gentlemen, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you very much.
All right, so Santho, to begin with, first off, we had this elections 7th of October. There were a lot of expectations. How would you rate the general conduct of the elections?
Thank you for the question. Good to be in your program. On the whole, I think the elections were managed well in the circumstances, and the foreign observers, SADC, AU, EU, and others have endorsed the elections and the management of the elections. So on the whole, I think technically the elections were well managed. There were a few issues about the voters list and whether it could have been done better in terms of names of people appearing at places that they expected, at polling stations where they expected them to appear and having to move about. And it may have been due to the fact that there was an ongoing process of delimitation of constituencies, which had to be finalized and reversed again. But on the whole, I think the elections were okay. It's important to observe that the voter turnout was actually quite poor, even compared to 2017, the last elections, where the voter turnout was 47%. This time, the voter turnout was 37.71%. That's not good, and it reflects a sense of disillusionment, one may say, by voters with the governance system or non-participation, despite the efforts of NGOs in doing voter education that my colleague, Mr. Mapeja, will talk about in a moment. And as far as I'm concerned, this disillusionment and lack of trust is a legacy of the last 10 years that Lesotho has gone through what I call muddling through with a problematic coalition government. So that's not a good sign. That's not a good sign. But for now, the surprise factor, of course, was how well the RFP the new kid on the block, as you indicated, has done well in the
All right.
circumstances. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Santho. Now, could you kindly tilt your device a bit so that we can get a clearer picture of you? That's for second yellow, please.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, wonderful, second yellow. Thank you for joining us in the conversation.
Yeah, you and your listeners, I'm grateful to be around. And thanks, Santo, for the insightful comments he has made, because that's exactly what portrays the situation here.
Okay, so second yellow, Santo mentioned this disillusionment with the voter participation, especially when compared to 2017 elections. Now, you would have expected that with so much news on the social media and the youths going over a change for this election, you would have expected that a lot of people would participate in this election. So first off, would you also agree with Santo that the voter participation was low compared to previous elections?
Oh, yes, it is very low compared to the last elections. You talked to me after having come out of a studio where I was doing analysis as to say 1993 it was supposed 72%, 2002 70%, and then it went down until it was 46% last elections, and now it is now not even at 40. This come amidst, like he said, many factors that affected the country in the last 10-15 years. You would be amazed to know that Lesotho now, on the world population, rather on the murder rate, is the highest insecure country in Africa, fourth in the world. That scares people to move around and all that. And again, lack of service delivery has brought a lot of disillusionment amongst the electorate. Of course, the coming in of a new kid in the block, like you are saying, and Sandra is saying that, it ignited some youth, like you are saying, in the social media, but it was taking them from a very low, the baseline was very low, and had we not been having it, we wonder maybe it will be 30%. So indeed, the voter turnout is that. So we have a lot of work to do in the civic movements for civic education, and the electoral body has a lot of to do on voter education. This is a challenge we want to take to say, yes, indeed, we are opening a new leaf. We want to see that delivery is improved. We want to see that nepotism, corruption, and mismanagement of government funds comes to a standstill, and that is going to ignite people's interest in elections and in democracy.
Okay, Second Yellow, you talk about civic education. So if you're looking at the Independent Electoral Commission, would you give them a pass mark? I mean, looking at the differences or changes between 2017 and 2022 elections, would you give the IEC a pass mark for this election?
Well, I would give it a pass mark to the extent that what has happened, what has transpired, are the challenges that have engulfed this election. That we are saying it didn't. The will of the people was short as to what people wanted. So I'll give it a pass mark again on the basis that it lacked funds. It was not given enough funds that it wanted to do these elections. It wanted to do a new voters roll altogether, but it wasn't about to do that. The constituency elimination took time because there was no money to do it. So under the circumstances, I would give it a pass mark for these elections. Yes, indeed.
All right, Santho, what's your take on that? Now, he talked about funding for the election. Do you think the funding was not enough for the election?
Yes, and you know, between 2012 and 2022, Lesotho has had 4 elections at very high costs. And because of coalition governments that lasted way before, that ended their tenure way before their term, lasting 2 years, 3 years there. So a fortune has been spent on elections that were called prematurely. And so the whole issue of the cost effectiveness of elections is a key issue. So by the time we come to 2022, and for the reasons that my colleague Sikonyela has indicated, lack of accountable governance, diversion of resources, the IEC did not get the kinds of resources that it needed to get in order to manage these elections very well and do all the things that Sikonyela has indicated, voters list update and constituency delimitation. So yes, it was a shoestring budget for the IEC, and we should commend them for having achieved what they did in the circumstances. At one point in the pre-election period, we had a great fear that, in fact, this financial constraints will be so serious that the IEC will fail to deliver a credible election. But thanks God, they seem to have managed on a shoestring. Yes.
All right, Santha, austerity, and that's coming to the crux of this election. Now, this particular party, the Revolution for Prosperity, Lesotho has had several elections, but this is the first time that this party is registering in Lesotho politics. And yet, it has become a leading figure in this election. It won about 56 seats for the parliamentary seats. I mean, what led to this game changer?
Very interesting, is it not?
Yes,
the
definitely.
fact that the RFP, as you say, is barely 6 months old, and it is led by the richest businessmen in Lesotho. And analysts have been speculating a lot of why did they venture into politics and elections in the first instance? And there are many reasons that people provide, but one of the issues was that there is a sense that the governance system, including the economic governance system, was undermining the business environment. And so businessmen thought that it's best if they are hands-on and manage the political system themselves. Now, whether that is good or bad, the debate is still hot in Lesotho, because the fear of citizens and watchdog NGOs that Sikonyela is involved with is that some of the motivation reasons for the businessmen may not be noble, and they may be wanting to award themselves tenders and economic opportunities and contracts directly, while if they were not in the political system, they would not have this conflict of interests. So many reasons, but once they came in with what we call here a lot of razzmatazz, showbiz, flying around in helicopters, hopping from one constituency to the next, big festivals, and general razzmatazz, showbiz kind of. And we were not taking it too seriously, only to learn now that we have this outcome that, my goodness, the Basotho voters, despite the low turnout, took this razzmatazz seriously. And there you are, they see these businessmen as a probably successful Basotho who represent success in a country that is on the whole poor. And so they are sort of a success model that appeals to citizens, including youth. And secondly, probably because of disillusionment with professional politicians, there's a sense that maybe business people, if given a chance, can run the country much better. Mind you, the leader of RFP himself, Mr. Samuel Matekane, has said, I will run the government like I run my business. What does that mean? We are watching that very closely.
All right, Santha, you've laid a very important question, because that was what my mind was wrapping up. A businessman going to politics, Matekane, and according to you, he has managed to be able to persuade the people, and his party has gotten one of the largest votes, 56. I mean, compared to all the previous elections, he has gotten a very large number in the parliamentary elections. So I want to hear from Sikonyela now. What more do we know about this rich businessman who has come into the political scene and taken Lesotho by surprise? And do you think he has what it takes? Because it's one thing to be a businessman, but it's another thing to go into the form of politics or diplomacy. What changes or what do you expect from him?
Yeah, he has a big task ahead of him and his colleagues. A biggest task that he has is that he has to dispel these myths and beliefs that amount around that because he has been benefiting from the tenders now that he's in government. People want to see him deliver as he does in this business. So what you're saying, what is no, the man is not known in political circles other than his success in Africa and the world in his businesses in the mining industry. So the thing is, where we are now, he has got these numbers, and unfortunately for him and his colleagues, they had wanted to get 50+1 that they can form government on their own. But it wasn't to be like that. Now there are 56 seats, and they are short of 5 seats to make it 50+1. So it means they have to collate with others to form that government. But the general public is not going to accept any excuse that they are now with these other parties and therefore they cannot deliver. And he was lucky that he came at a moment where the delivery was shattered. Everything was bad in the country. So when he came in, people found that no, Moses is here for us. Let's follow him. And he has gotten numbers not only from his party followers, but across all other parties. They elected him. Even a person that was at a constituency level, people will say, no, we disregard this man or this woman in front of us. We are electing, we are giving the man, the pioneer, we are giving him his vote. So whoever stands here, we are going to elect them, because our system is that once someone is elected at a constituency, those votes are collated to form what the party is going to get in the national vote. So they were saying we are voting for Matekane, not even Ntsokoane standing here. You know, Ntsokoane, he might not be a good man, but we'll give him vote because we make an example, because we want Matekane to be in government. So we are waiting to see whether he succeeds to form a coalition that's going to be reckoned with.
Okay, finally, I want to hear from Santho, because we had the All Basotho Convention, which has ruled Lesotho for a very long time. And just like we rightly put it there, this new party has come up with this businessman giving so many promises to the people. Now that the votes have been counted and RFP has gotten 56, what next for Lesotho?
Well, firstly, as my colleague, Mr. Ntsokoane says, he has to negotiate with other parties to get a minimum of 6 members of parliament of another party with whom he can form a coalition government. What Lesotho needs is stable, performing coalition governance. That's what Lesotho needs. And this vote is not a dissolution. That's what they need. So in the first instance, as we speak, I'm sure he's involved in negotiations to identify 1 or 2 parties that he can form a government with. Secondly, he has to develop a priority program. For now, he may be thinking, I think, of 100 days plan of priorities that he wants to implement in the next 100 days, to be seen to be delivering and responding to those high expectations that we have talked about. Beyond the 100 days, the truth of the matter is that Lesotho faces serious challenges, both regionally and globally. South Africa itself, its politics is unstable. The future of the ANC in South Africa is unstable. So the next 5 years is a very turbulent environment in the region, in South Africa, within which Lesotho has to survive and ensure that it makes up for lost opportunities. Yes.
All right, thank you so much, Santho. We do wait to see what happens in the next 5 years, and especially for Matekane, how he's going to pull the country back together. Thank you so much, Sehoa Santho, Governance and Development Consultant in Lesotho, SA and SADC region. Also, thank you, Ntsokoane Matekane, Programs Director at Lesotho Council of NGOs. Thank you so much for joining us on the conversation.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
very
It's a
much.
pleasure. Thank you.
And right now, we take a quick break. When we come back, we switch over to Chad, where Mohamed Idris Deby Itno has been declared transitional president. Be back shortly.